film photography has made somewhat of a comeback as of late. Living in an age where everything is at your fingertips or at a moment's notice certainly has its benefits, but many photographers and artists started getting drained by looking at the same clean, sterile images day in, day out without a drip of character, yearning for the days when images looked bad, but they sometimes had nice grain. For the longest time, I thought film photography in the modern day was silly, purposefully holding yourself back, all in the hopes of getting a quote-unquote film look, which could just be added digitally after the fact. I saw film photography the same way that I saw record players, with claims saying that they are the superior format compared to digital, which at one point may have been true, but since then have actually been overtaken in quality by their digital counterparts. And that's how I felt for the longest time. Until I tried this cheap $50 film camera, the Kodak Ektar H35 half-frame film camera, which due to it being half-frame can take 72 shots per roll. I took this camera on a trip to South Korea to remember the trip by, to take a few shots every single day. Needless to say, I don't think film photography is silly anymore. And I also bought a record player. Let's talk about why. I want to lay this out from the beginning. I still think digital photography is better for modern day work. Anything where your livelihood depends on the photos that you're taking, on capturing a specific moment in time that you can't get back. For instance, like a wedding photographer. I had a client recently who above all else wanted the moment where her fiance saw her in her wedding dress for the very first time to be captured. Because of that, I ended up taking hundreds of photos of this one moment and then sifting through them after the fact. These are the moments where digital photography shines brightest, where perfection is required. We're taking hundreds of photos of just a few seconds in real life. Isn't a downside, but it's exactly what you as a photographer are getting paid to do. There is one thing that doesn't come to mind for me when thinking about this scenario. Fun. Sifting through hundreds of photos of the same thing, trying to find the absolute perfect photo, isn't fun. It's work. That, on the other hand, is where I actually think film photography shines. Let's go back to those 72 shots that I was talking about earlier from South Korea. These pictures are not perfect. They're not sterile. They're not clean. I am not able to make almost any changes to them after the fact without them completely falling apart. But I love them. Out of any of the pictures that I took in this South Korea trip, these are the few photos that I keep coming back to and I keep thinking about all this time later. During that same trip, I took this 2 terabyte Samsung SSD, and out of that 2 terabytes, 1.8 terabytes has been filled up with thousands of photos and hours upon hours of video footage. And don't get me wrong, out of these 1.8 terabytes, I think there are some fantastic photos, and almost every single one, technically speaking, is better than these half-frame shots. They're all higher resolution, they're all higher quality. So why then do I like the film shots so much? I think it comes down to 2 reasons. First and most obvious is an overload of choice. We've all experienced this in one shape or form. Whether it's something as simple as choosing what to watch or eat, or something more complicated like who to date.
Ketchup? 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 I'm in way over my head.
This is not a new phenomenon by any means, but I feel like the backlash is getting more severe as of late. When you have access to millions of songs on something like Spotify, being limited to 5 songs on a vinyl record makes you appreciate each one of those songs a lot more. And I think the same can be said for film photography. Just a funny side note, while researching for this video, I came across multiple articles that are talking about how to get over an overload of choice. And some of them, in and of themselves, overload you with choices to how you're gonna get over your overload of choice problem. Like this article that gives you 16 different ways to get over the overload of choice.
Are you here to solve my ketchup problem?
Yes, that's right.
That's just the definition of irony. I think that's funny. The second reason that I think it's fun is that every single roll of film, and by that every single photo, has its own built-in look to it. Digital photography, on the other hand, especially when you're shooting in RAW, purposefully keep the images plain so you have more room to play around with them after the fact and get the desired look that you want. So you can focus on shooting in the moment and worry about kind of the overall look and color of the image later, which again is fantastic for work, but is not super fun when you're just on vacation taking pictures with your friends and family. It has been so much fun trying out different film stocks in different situations to see how the overall images are going to turn out. Again, this is another area where film photography, I feel, is very similar to records, where records have this specific sound to them, which is not technically perfect by any means, but rather is meant to be enjoyed. Would I be using a record or a vinyl if I was a professional audio engineer trying to get a technically perfect sound out of something? No. But would I use a vinyl record if I was at home trying to enjoy a song? Yes. So when you put both of these things together with film, both the scarcity along with the character of film, what are you getting? You are getting something that is getting harder and harder to come by nowadays. You're getting something special. I remember getting those photos from that trip back from the lab, and just how excited I was to take a look at them and see how they turned out. That may be silly to say that I enjoyed the process of waiting for something to be made, but I really think that if that wasn't there, it would lose something for me. I think that that's really important to talk about too, is that I would completely understand if everything in this video that I have talked about as being a pro for film photography, in my opinion, someone else would think would be a con. Having to wait for the photos to be developed, having every photo have a built-in character to it, having a limited number of shots that you can take per roll of film, and if you buy another roll of film, you have to spend more money both buying the film and developing it. All of those, you could very easily just switch over and make it a complete con, and you'd be completely right, and that's how I felt for a long time too. I also understand how some of the things that I like about film photography, if I went out and bought 50 rolls of film and shot all of them in a week, would probably just disappear for me. And that leads me to my overall conclusion with film. I like it. I like this Kodak Ektar, and it really has changed my opinion on this entire medium. But I'm not going to become a film photographer. I want this thing to stay special. And part of that for me is not doing it all the time. Just like I want vacations and trips to still be special. If I traveled every single month of every single year, sure, there would still be moments from those trips that I would think back and really enjoy. But if I was doing it all the time, it wouldn't be nearly as memorable or special as doing it once or maybe twice a year. I think of film photography in the same way. If I went out and shot 50 rolls of film, I'm sure that there would still be photos from those 50 rolls that I absolutely loved, but none of them would be as truly meaningful as shooting just 1 or 2 rolls of film every year. If you've never tried film photography, I would strongly recommend picking one of these up. It is exactly what I want out of a film camera. And it's dirt cheap. I'll leave this camera along with the film stocks that I've been showing throughout this video in the description down below if you want to pick them up. But I think that's all for me. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless.